like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. If you would all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte,
Here.
Commissioner Withington,
Here.
Commissioner Lawson,
Here.
Commissioner Wagner,
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Johnson.
Here. Is there a motion for the approval of this evening's agenda?
Move to approve the agenda for this evening.
Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
That brings us to public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment this evening? Seeing none. That brings us to our immediate action. Administrator?
Thank you, Commissioners. There are 3 items on immediate action this evening. The first item is Commission meeting minutes from February 1st, the 3 p.m. meeting. Resolution 2023-88 is approving invoice payments for the period of February 17th through March 2nd in the amount of $2,548,602.43 for 335 invoices. And also Resolution 2023-79, which has approved the payment for the University of Missouri Extension in the amount of $83,350, which is included in the 2023 budget and is a statutory obligation of the county to the University of Missouri.
Is there a motion related to the immediate action agenda?
Yes, I move to approve all 3 items on the immediate action agenda.
Motion has been made to approve the 3 items under immediate action on this evening's agenda. Are there any discussions or questions? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
That brings us to our consent agenda. There is 1 item on our consent agenda. That is, Administrator, if you want to go ahead and just mention that one.
The item on the consent agenda is Resolution 2023-70, approving a 5-year mail machine lease agreement with Pitney Bowes.
Is there a motion related to our consent agenda?
Yes, I move to approve 2023-70.
Motion has been made for the approval of the consent agenda, which includes 2023-70. Discussion? Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Next is our regular agenda. First item is 2023-77. Administrator?
Resolution 2023-77 is approving the renewal of property and casualty insurance with Travelers Insurance. The annual premium for all lines of coverage is $2,210,815. Staff did do a presentation on this last week. There was some additional information that was requested by the commission, was included in your packet. You asked for sort of benchmark on the property insurance and also the marketing approach that CBIZ did, which is the county's insurance broker. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have. CBIZ is here this evening.
Any questions from members of the commission? Would you like to comment on any of this? Wise course of action. Is there a motion on 2023-77?
Yes, I move to approve 2023-77.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2023-77. Discussion. Very well. Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is 2023-76. Administrator?
Resolution 2023-76 is approval and sign the formal proposal and capital project encumbrance request for the purchase of 3 replacement dump trucks with Nextran Truck Center for our Highway Department. Staff presented on this last week during the meeting, and we're certainly available tonight to answer questions.
Are there any questions of staff on this issue? Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I have several questions. And so let me clarify, the purpose for my questions, twofold. One, for me to help understand things, but I also want the public to understand. This is a big purchase. My agenda packet won't come up right now. My computer's just way too slow, so I'm gonna have to go off memory. But if I'm not mistaken, this is what, $168,000, something like that we're looking at, $160-something thousand dollars?
165,411,116.
For this year. So this is a 5-year lease to own. So it's 165,000 this year, but it's 165,000 for the next 5 years, which means it's going to be for the 3 dump trucks. It's going to cost us about roughly a little over $875,000. That includes the lease to buy, as well as it's roughly 48,000, if I'm not remember, 49,000 a year that we'll pay in maintenance for maintenance as well. That will cover the maintenance on them. And so included in this 168 that we'll pay each year is 49,000 roughly in maintenance, and the rest is just P&I for the principal and interest on that.
5%, yeah.
So a couple, oh, thank you, you're a lifesaver. Yes, I can look at it. Again, I apologize. So the couple questions I have. First of all, so these dump trucks, how many do we have in our fleet? Is there just 3 or is there more than that?
Commissioner Carl Walters, Deputy County Administrator for Clay County. We have 10 tandem trucks,
Okay, 10.
and we have 3 quad trucks, which are 4 doors, and then we have 2 single cab, single axle trucks.
And these are tandem trucks that you want to replace, right?
Correct,
So you're replacing 3 of the 10.
correct.
And the 3 that you're replacing, they were 2015 trucks. Did we buy those new in 2015? Do you remember?
We had them as a lease.
So what's the life expectancy? These trucks that we're buying, what's the life expectancy on these things? When do we expect to have to replace those again?
Well, I mean, I don't want to go down a road that I know, but when I was here before, when you buy a diesel truck, we've had life expectancies of 10 years for some of our trucks, and then we've had life expectancy for these here that are like 7. And as Terry had said, the manager had said before, reason why we're having issues with these is because they got that max force engine in them, and they have a tendency on the EGR valve to turn around and build carbon up into the motor. Well, if we don't catch it in time, then we may be replacing the motor. And also, we've had issues with the intercoolers. If they go bad and we can't catch them in time, turn around, we could ruin an engine. We've had radiators and the cooler radiator for the transmission also as well. We've had to replace on them as well. Plus, you're looking at, when she turned around and told you the mileage of the vehicle, that's the mileage of the vehicle, but the real mileage of that vehicle is done by hours.
Runtime,
And when
yeah.
you calculate those hours into miles, that truck, instead of having 81,000 miles on it, was 145,000
Right, yeah,
miles.
same issue with the police cars. Now, you may not know the answer to this, and you could say you don't know, but do you happen to know on these 3 that we're replacing, how much we're spending each year on maintenance on those?
Yes, sir. I do. In an average of $6,500 is what we spend on those trucks on an average in the last 7 years. And I can tell you on the Mack trucks that we have bought, and that's a 2018 up to date, that we've only spent $3,000 on that truck.
So,
on average.
okay, let me clarify that. So the ones that we're replacing right now, we're spending about $6,500
A year.
a year on maintenance?
Mm-hmm.
But these new ones, we're going to be spending $50,000 or $49,000 a year on 487.
Okay, yeah, you could see it that way. But the thing about it is, it's a maintenance agreement with them, so whatever's done to it is done through Mack Truck.
Right.
And then also the technology has changed now, so what happens is they can turn around and they can tie into that truck with their computers.
Right.
And if they see something that's going wrong, they can shut that truck down before there's anything major go wrong with it. And then they can have us shut it down, they'll come out, pick it up, or they can do that right on the thing, take it to Mack Truck, turn around and fix it before anything major goes wrong with it.
And does this maintenance amount include all parts and labor for the 5 years?
As far as I know, that's a question I can't, but I think it does, yes.
I would hope so, for that
Yeah,
amount.
I'm pretty sure it does.
And then, so at the end of 5 years, we outright own them?
We own them.
And then the maintenance ceases at that point? It's all on us?
Correct. It's all
for
on
the
us.
maintenance.
Now, we have to do our regulars, like the changing oil and
Sure.
the tires and things like that,
Sure.
and, whatever the small maintenance is, but as far as powertrain and everything on that part of it, that's what they're,
So $875,000 for 3 dump trucks, tandem trucks, that includes maintenance for 5 years. Is that, I don't know dump trucks that well. I don't think I've ever bought one in my entire life. So
Well-
is that a,
well, yeah, I can go back to when I bought the 15s, they were 130,000 at that time for a truck, that was, and a bed. So I talked to a guy outright to turn around and replace a truck that he wanted to turn around and get in on the bid, and it was like 210,000. So we do our bidding, or I guess we get our trucks through MoDOT, because they have such a large volume of trucks that they buy, and so they let the municipalities feed off of that, so we can either get an international or Mack truck. And so we've decided in 2018 just to change the Mack trucks because of the problems that International's having, and International's quit making those engines, which they about, took them out because of the problems that they were having, so we kind of weeded away from them, because we'd had International since 1995.
okay, but I think you answered one of my questions. My next question, that is, we're getting a little bit of a deal, basically a volume deal, because we're going through MoDOT.
Yeah, because we get a percentage
Okay.
on government buying,
Okay, good.
taken off of it, yes.
Okay.
And a lot of places, when you go to a truck place, don't give you that big of a discount. So when they bid that out to turn around and do those trucks through MoDOT, they want a percentage, and then they negotiate that percentage and stuff so that we can turn around and also buy off of them as well.
Okay. And then the other question, you answered it, but I just want to confirm so other people can hear in the public, and that is, we're not replacing all the fleet at once. And when it's the tandems, it's 3 of 10, so it's somewhat of a rotating replacement, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We're
Okay.
trying to weed out the internationals because we're having so much problem with them, and I'll let you know. We've got 2009 internationals that have Cummins engines in them that we slid over to the parks, and they still drive them today because they had Cummins engines in them.
Okay.
And so they're still running today, but they don't do as much as we do, like hauling rock throughout the county and turn around hauling dirt, and then when we plow snow and stuff like that, we have to make sure we have a dependable vehicle to go out there, otherwise we're hauling it back in with the tow truck because something's went wrong.
So, and I think you just answered it, but I was going to ask for the public as well, what do you use these dump trucks for?
Again.
Don't say
rock-
dumping stuff.
Rock hauling, brush hauling, hauling dirt, snow plowing. We may have time haul sand, haul big rock with them. So things that we do with that in the county for our roads.
Well, thank you, sir. That answers my questions. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Any other commissioners have any comments or questions? Very well, seeing none.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there a motion, I'm sorry, let me get back over here. Is there a motion related to 2023-76?
Move to approve 2023-76.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2023-76. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Next and last item on our regular agenda is 2023-87. Administrator?
Resolution 2023-87 is approval of an emergency purchase for padded cell repair with padded surfaces by B&E. This is on for your first reading and recommending approval this evening. And Deputy County Administrator Coons is here to share with you information about this emergency purchase.
Please proceed.
Good evening. Donna Kuntz, Deputy County Administrator. Commissioners, I actually think in my entire career, I think this is the first time I've ever had to go before the commission for a absolute outside-the-box emergency purchase. We've had some emergencies, but I don't think I've ever had to do an emergency purchase. This is a specialized room over in our detention facility, specifically in the booking area. We have only one of these rooms. It is a necessary and medically needed room for any of our high-risk inmates. We we tried to reach out to some other vendors. There are not very many vendors that perform this type of service. There were 2 areas gouged out, in one by the door and one on the floor in this cell, which would allow any inmate in there to further grab the material. They could ingest the material, various other things could have happened. So we were finally able to find a vendor that was able to respond immediately, to come the next day to perform the service, which occurred last week on Tuesday. Then because of the cure time for the product, it was not able to be reopened until this past Monday. But the cost of the service to do the repair and a complete recoat of all the surfaces inside the room came to $14,945, which exceeded the allowable $12,000 purchase with a vendor within a 90-day time frame.
Very well. Questions of the Deputy Administrator? Commissioner Johnson.
Promise I won't talk as long as I did last time. I just want to make one comment, and that is that in my prior life, I actually ran a jail facility. We had the exact same issue happen. We had to replace the padding in the padded cell. There are very, very few vendors that will do that kind of work, and there's a lot of liability involved. But there's also officer safety issues by not having that padded cell available. I know that as well. So just nonetheless, they're not trying to pull the rug out from or pull the wool over our eyes, I'll tell you that. This is a legit deal and got my support.
Further discussion? The request has been made that we pass 2023-87 this evening on first read. Is there a motion?
Move to approve 2023-87.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2023-87. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Very well, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Next on the agenda is discussion items. We have under discussion ordinance 2022, ordinance 40. I believe that was requested by Commissioner Withington. So if Commissioner, you would like to start the discussion.
Yeah, this is the same thing we discussed last week.
Could you speak a little bit more into your mic, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is the same thing we discussed last week. I guess we just need to discuss it a little bit more so that way staff feels like they have a clear directive from us if we want to move forward. Basically, at one time, the county commission had a say over transfers, adjustments, and revisions. That was removed last year with ordinance 2022-40. And I would like to see that re-added with the newer dollar amounts of $12,000 and $6,000. This way, we can ensure that us as a commission, the items that we want to see budgeted for, or priorities that we have budgeted for are, they're not underfunded or removed. And yeah, that's pretty much what I said last week, and just want to see what everybody else says so we can give staff feels like they have direction so they can move forward by putting this on as an ordinance.
Very well. Commissioner Lawson?
Yeah, as I said last week, I think that this is our responsibility. That's what we promised people that we would do, and I think it was a very clear for all of us, a very clear signal from the people that voted that that's what they were looking for, was more control by this commission. So nothing bad, nothing hidden. I just think that this way, when there are transfers or anything of that nature, I think that we should be able to know, and we should be able to put our vote on it. We may not always agree on any of that we do, but for the most part, we've all said transparency, transparency, and this brings it all home. So I would strongly suggest that we go ahead and approve this new ordinance, or the revision of the ordinance, to allow our participation in any transfers that we do.
Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Johnson? or Commissioner Carpenter? I didn't see whichever you want to.
Well, I see a couple commissioners interested, but I'll go ahead and go. Thank you. I just want a little bit of clarification because there's notification of transfer and then there's sort of approval of transfer. And I just want to, if we're providing direction,
Approval.
You're suggesting, yes, approval and.
Because we get
yes.
notified currently after the fact. This would come to us for approval.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, so I certainly support this, and I would like to see what this ordinance would look like, but I also would like to see, there's a balance we need to strike, and I guess what I want is some input from our county administrator, if she'd like to give any input, on how this change would affect anything, if it'd make really any big effect at all, if that would cause any problems, or, is it juice worth the squeeze kind of a thing?
Administrator?
Sure. So as Commissioner Whittington indicated, this actually was prior practice by the county, although it was changed mid-year last year. And typically what you will see and how this is impacted is more towards the end of the fiscal year. So, for example, with fuel prices, we sometimes have to move money around to buy fuel to fuel the vehicles of the fleet for the county. We may have to move money around because we need to buy fuel at the airport for resale purposes. Utilities at the end of the year, budget is our best guess on what we think those items are going to cost us. And how the county currently operates is when a department wants to expend money, there is a process in which it goes through the auditor's office to make sure that there are unencumbered funds in that line item to pay for whatever is being purchased. If there are not sufficient funds in that line item, then we have to transfer money into that line item to make that happen. So it's certainly doable to do. We just need to know if that's going to be the process, then we need to add that step into our process for funding of purchases.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I think what we're at here in this evolution of Clay County and our commission is we have some of us newbies who, what's the right word? We just want to know more. We want more, I don't know if control is the right word, but we're more cautious about where money's coming and going, I guess. And I'm one of them. And maybe that'll loosen up over time. We get like these old guys here that have been in the business for a while, but yeah. So I'm supportive of this in the sense that I would like to have a little bit more know of where things are coming and going, and as long as we're not slowing things down too much for staff to get their work done. Yeah, I'd like to see what an ordinance like this would look like and how we do it.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, first I'll say, everybody's all for transparency. I certainly am. What I don't know is how you do the first part. So if the idea is that you are going to get out in front of an expenditure to report that you're going to make it, yet the first part suggests that you do not exceed the sum of $12,000 in an account to a 90-day period. Well, if you have issues that come up related to utilities or other things, it's hard for you to forecast, I would think, that you're going to hit that threshold 90 days from the time you first start that transferring. So I'm not exactly sure how that is accomplished.
So I think there's confusion about the 90-day period, which really comes from the state statute about purchasing. And so if we are going to spend $12,000 or more in a 3-month period with a vendor, then it takes a commission approval. As you saw this evening with the emergency purchase for the padded cell, that was $14,000 going to be paid to a vendor in 1-month period. So that exceeded the $12,000. So that's why it was sort of an after-action emergency purchase that you all needed to ratify. So that's what the 90-day is for. So typically what will happen is, and I can talk about last year because it happened several times, is in November, October-ish, we needed to fill the fuel tank. Estimated on what that was going to cost based on the fuel prices at the time we needed to fill the tank. There was not sufficient money in that particular line item. So the department looked for where's the funding going to come from, where could they move it to, because that is a priority, is to have fuel to operate our fleet. And so If it requires commission approval, then we'll have to come to the commission that you approve that transfer, and then the transfer will occur, and then we can have the purchase.
But I guess where I'm struggling, though, is unless you know that's coming, and you start down the road of making transfers for whatever emergency there happens to be, and let's say you get through 89 days and you're well below, but then on day 90, you hit the thing that trips your $12,000, are you not in violation of the ordinance because you've not gotten the prior approval to go past that threshold? And maybe I'm not.
Yeah, I think because the issue, if you're talking about utilities, obviously, we don't come to the commission. You approve payments every time we bring them to you, like tonight. And that's before we pay the utility bill. So most of the time, those things happen that we don't trigger. You know, there are many vendors, we pay over $12,000 in a 3-month period.
Sure.
And so there are mechanisms to set up to make sure that happens, that you are approving those payments before we actually make those payments.
But under that situation, I'm sorry, I'm just in the weeds here, I apologize, but then in that situation, then it would seem to me the clock restarts, because every time you come forward and we make an approval of that transfer for whatever that may be in that series, then to me, the clock restarts because we have already given approval for the prior spending.
Correct.
Okay. Then I guess functionally, nothing really has changed with the addition of that or the reinstatement of that language.
Well, the only function that has changed is before we can transfer the money, before we can pay the invoice or order the fuel, really, right? It will come to the commission for approval for that transfer. And I'm sure those will be requested immediate action.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
I had a question, and it's more of a practical one, and that is in the case of an emergency. Some months ago, we had a maintenance emergency at the jail that required pretty immediate action. It was a plumbing problem. It was a sewer problem. How would this impact that? And should we consider, when there are emergencies of that nature, being able to move beyond that? Or walk me through how that would look.
I would agree with you, and I would recommend that there should be an emergency clause in here, just like there was, we have an emergency clause in our purchasing policy anyway, like you saw this evening. And certainly if we have an emergency and it needs to be paid out of a line item and we don't have money in the line item, we may have to do the transfer, because our process is the expenditure authority, the auditor, and the county administrator, we don't approve if there's not money in the line item. So there may be an emergency transfer that goes along with the emergency purchase. And that would be part of the process of coming back to you and notifying you of the emergency purchase.
Before I go forward, I just want to see if that is something that, okay, good, that you're good with. Commissioner Lawson, did you want to be recognized?
That's one of the things I was thinking about too, is the emergency environment. But frankly, those are those special things. But normally, like anything that we approve to purchase or whatever, it isn't going to be that long of a span. We're here every week, you know, so I didn't really see the problem, other than something unforetold like the plumbing problem. Then yeah, we've got to react immediately.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. So I will say that as a commissioner that's been here for a couple of years, this is a process that was previously put in place and we were utilizing, and I felt it was going just fine. So I have no problem moving forward, putting it back the way it was, just to help with transparency. And I think that's always a good thing here in Clay County. My one thing is I want to make sure we have the auditor to see if he has anything he would like to weigh in. Does this process go okay with you in your office, since it's adding a step back in for you? Make sure I have some feedback there.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. So I guess I'll input here. Yeah, like you said, Commissioner, I think we had this process in place for, decades, and I can't, as to, can we handle an emergency? I can't think of a time where this was an impediment to us being able to do it. I think it makes good sense to have that in place. And the other thing I guess I would add to the conversation here is about, if you need to make a purchase, the time that actually gets paid off is quite a bit later. So, handling a transfer of a budget has some time to occur. If there's like an emergency credit card purchase, that can happen, right now. And then, figuring out the budget, transferring it correctly can so there's really nothing that, as far as the emergency, but if that's will of the commission, if that's what you all want to put in there, certainly, feel free to do that. From an auditing standpoint, I do think it would make sense to have a little more of that, control. I've seen other state audits in the state of Missouri where if there, isn't a transfer process like this in place in policy, where it can be abused. So it's a pretty good control to ensure compliance with the commission's approved budget to have something like this in place. But at the same time, I think, we put this in place last year, administrator and I helped, work with the language because we had some things in the appropriation order that, were something that we didn't have to do every year. They were repetitive, and we did have that historic, spike in fuel costs last year. Is that something we're going to face every year? Probably not. So those are my thoughts. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I do have an additional question, actually, and it's more of a broad question, and that is, do you see these changes having either positive or negative impact as we go for our outside audit? We just obviously went through a state audit not too long ago, so does this impact, I don't know that it would, but do you see any impact that this would have on the positive audit report that we might be getting? Or is this kind of a non-issue on that particular perspective?
Probably not the financial statement audit. I don't think it would have any impact, really. More of a compliance audit probably would, but like I've said before, any process you put into place, whether it's the existing code that we have where the restrictions are, as long as it's not between a fund and it's not from an emergency account, or if you go to, back to the process that we've had before with a threshold, as long as you are consistent and document that, I think that's kind of the key thing, as far as, ensuring that you're, following good procedures and protocols. So that's kind of, my thoughts on that. But, like the commissioner has said before, I think, especially with the general fund, there are a lot of purposes in one large fund like that. And, what this does is it kind of gets back down to an account level, which is because even within, let's say, a department, when we talk about the chart of accounts, there are a lot of types of uses within that, from personnel to contractual commodities capital. And so going to a line account level, I think, is important to do. That way, not only within the fund, but also with uses of, you could theoretically, as we stand right now, move money from what you all approved to buy a truck, a dump truck, to personnel. So it's a little bit more of something for showing that compliance. But again, whatever process is chosen, document that you complied, that this is the policy, and that, we have the right approvals and complied with it.
All right. Any other questions of the auditor while we have him before us? Okay. I don't know are there any other comments? What I'd like to do is I'd like to go to Commissioner Withington. I'd like you to just do a quick summation of what this proposal will do, and then I'm just going to go around and make sure that there is consensus, which I feel there is, but please go proceed.
Yeah, so you guys should see in the packet a proposed ordinance. And in red, it will just change section 3, and it will say the total amount of adjustments, transfers, revisions, or amendments does not exceed the sum of $12,000 in an account in a 90-day period, except for, and then it talks about personnel also, not to exceed $6,000. So, like I said, I think that this would be a good thing for transparency. It will give us more control over the budget that we approve. We're the legislative body. That's our biggest public policy decision that we make every year. And it will ensure that we are able to make sure that the priorities we as a commission set are funded.
Very good. What I'd like to do is, and I don't think I necessarily need to go each person, but I'm just going to ask the general question. Is there consensus on the commission to instruct staff to go forward with constructing this ordinance? Just head nods are good enough, I think. Are we all? Very well. That seems to be the consensus of the commission. Administrator, do you feel as though you've got sufficient information to go forward?
We do, thank you.
Very good. That ends the discussion on ordinance 2022, ordinance 40. Next on the agenda are administrator comments. Please proceed.
Just a couple of items, please. The next meeting of the commission is next Wednesday, March 15th at 3 o'clock. It's a work session. Also wanted to talk briefly about the strategic planning meeting that we are trying to schedule. So we threw out several dates, and I've heard back from everyone, so thank you for that. We are looking potentially at a date of April 20th and 21st. However, we do have one commissioner that may not be able to attend due to a commitment at work, but it is unclear at this point, I don't think, knowing yes or no on that project. So if that's so I need some direction from the commission. Do you want to tentatively try and schedule it for the 20th and 21st? Now, it is difficult once we pick a date to move it because we're talking about a facility, a location, publicity, all your schedules. Or would you prefer that we throw out dates in May for the commission to look at? So I open that up for you all for discussion on what your pleasure is about trying to find a date.
Although I think I've notified the administrator, I do have some time in May that I would be unavailable with that. And by the way, Counselor, we're okay to do a discussion type style on this? Very good. Commissioner Withington.
I'm the commissioner who can't make it. I have a client upgrade those days, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to reschedule it. But you guys don't hold. If that's when you all can make it, you guys do it. I mean, I don't want anybody to reschedule anything because of me. But I have a work commitment that I'm trying to see if we can move it. It's not looking good, but you guys don't worry about me. So if that works for you guys just go ahead. So.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would require a cardboard cutout of you so that there at least seems like you're there in spirit. But I would certainly entertain May if we need to. I think there is, having gone through similar things before, it is always good to have everyone there. There's a value to having everyone there. And although I appreciate you saying go on, I prefer, frankly, to have you there. So I don't know if even within that schedule of the 20th and 21st, is there enough flexibility in how we might schedule and what your schedule allows to at least allow some opportunity for participation?
I might be able to make it for like an hour or two, but the whole day probably is not.
I see. Well, I'll just throw out there, I think it's ideal if everyone is there, and I have some flexibility in May as well. So I'll just put it that way.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, the only thing I was wondering about, is there a way you could join on a conference call?
So I'm going to be kind of heads down.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, there might be a couple hours I could come, but for the most part, these client upgrades, yeah.
If we were looking at, because you were talking about possibly Administrator early May,
Correct.
what might be, I don't mean to draw this process out, but maybe we go with what we've got and maybe we just do an email survey of the commissioners and see if if there's some early May dates that would work, because I agree with Commissioner Wagner that the optimum is that all commissioners are able to participate as fully as possible. So if that doesn't, I guess my suggestion is if that is a complete no-go, if we end up in the same place we are now, is to just say, okay, we'll go with the April 2021 dates, but if we can move it to May and do something there, I mean, I hate to draw the process out, but like I say, I do think I want to see everybody there and participating. How does scheduling, how does the commission feel about maybe early May? I mean, I
My
realize
wife-
it's
My
paying.
wife just texted me and said we have nothing scheduled for May, so, and I'm looking at my calendar, so I don't have anything on my schedule for May either. So for like that first, 4th, and 5th in May, I'm free.
Well, if your house is like mine, you have received that on the highest authority. Like I say, I don't mean to impose and put more on the staff, but I think these are important enough issues to where if there's any way possible that we go with that route. Is there anybody that would find early to mid-May problematic? Do you think you might have some issues? I'll tell you what, let's just, let's let staff kind of look through that and see. We'll kind of, by default, we'll figure on going with the April 20, but if we could do a quick, just survey of seeing if we could move it, is that going to be possible, Administrator?
Sure, and let me check with the facilitator to see what their dates are available those first 2 weeks of May. I'll send all of you out an email with dates, and if you could get back as quickly as possible of your availability of all those dates, then hopefully we will find dates that work for everybody.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the scheduling? Very well. Any other comments, Administrator? Very good. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Johnson?
Actually, could we start on the other end today? Sure, of course. I've got a couple things down here. Thanks.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll start in the middle. We'll start with Commissioner Wagner, and I'll work this way and then work that way, and that makes you the last. So, Commissioner Wagner.
I have no comments. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Lawson.
Well, you know I'm going to have a comment. No, a couple of things. Couple questions. Where are we on prayer? We all need it. And I think that it's something that we brought up, and I'd like to see it get going now and not all the big, hairy discussion. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we say one nation under God. We say God. He was there when this country was founded, guided us along the way. Did we make mistakes? Heck yeah. But bottom line is a simple, generic little prayer before we start. I don't see what the delay is. I'd like to see that go forward and get done once and for all. So that's my number one priority. I'd also like to know where we are as far, and maybe Commissioner Johnson is going to talk more about this. If you are, I'll let you do your thing about the meetings.
But we can't
Yeah.
do discussion during
Okay.
this. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, the other thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see us do some changing on our meeting environment and how we don't have to have a business session and then a work session, and like that we just have a commission meeting and get things accomplished. That's something else I'm looking forward to see. One last thing I have, please, Diana, I love you, but I would love, I'm going to plan on coming to your staff meeting tomorrow, and I'd like to do that for my own information. I'd like to be involved in that a little bit. I don't have anything to say. I swear, I'll keep my yap shut. But I'm planning on coming, so I'll be there. I don't know if any other commissioners have the ability to join, but I'm going to come. Other than that, that's it. Love my job.
good. Commissioner Withington.
All right, so in 27 days, Clay County voters will go to the polls for the municipal elections. One set of races that will be on the ballot for the first time that I can remember is the Clay County Health Board elections. For the first time in the 21 years that I've been able to vote, enough candidates have filed for health board to have an election. Previously, there was never enough people to file to hold an election, so whoever did file just got appointed to the health board. Last week, I was contacted by several constituents regarding censorship on the Clay County Health Board's Facebook page. The health center was using their platform to promote individual members on the health board. When people started making comments that the health center did not like about the upcoming elections, comments was turned off. I reached out to Director Zabarak, I hope I said that right,
You did, yes.
and was told that the health board was, quote, "in the process of developing its social media policy, and while that process is underway, the comment function had been disabled for the entire page," end quote. According to the page Transparency on Facebook, Clay County Public Health Center / Missouri, the page was created on June 13th, 2012. Shouldn't the health board have created a social media policy 11 years ago when it created its page? Why wait until the month before the election to start the process of creating a social media policy? In my opinion, the optics are bad. You know, I'm a First Amendment absolutist. You know, defending speech, whether you agree with it or not, is at the core of the American experiment. And I hope that the health board will re-enable comments before the April election.
Commissioner Carpenter.
No comments? Thanks.
Commissioner Thompson.
No comments, thank you.
And Commissioner Johnson.
I'm ready now.
Very good.
I'm actually glad I went last. I just want to follow up on a couple of comments that were made. So we had discussions in the past about our meetings. I had put together a proposal, or I drafted a red line version of what I thought would look good in an ordinance and forwarded it to the county administrator a week or two ago. I know Commissioner Wagner has something together. And I talked with the county administrator earlier today, and we're going to work on some time that we can all get together and actually have a discussion about those ordinances and finalize what we want to do with this meeting stuff, business meeting, study session, first vote, second reading, whatever. So just know that is, I know did you want to comment on that at all? Are we allowed to now? I'm not sure.
Counselor, does this constitute a departure from what comments are meant to be by inquiring?
Okay, sorry, got permission to speak. So Commissioner Johnson and I had a conversation earlier, and we do have two proposals on the ordinance draft changes, and I think there are some key points that the commission as a whole would be great if you all could have some discussion and come to some consensus on, so that staff and our county councilor can write an ordinance that reflects what your directives are. I do think that probably the discussion will be longer than a normal type of topic that we typically have under discussion. So I would recommend possibly setting aside specifically a time study session for this particular topic. And so I know schedules are very difficult. You're all very busy individuals. So didn't know whether next week is a 3 o'clock meeting. So I was throwing out for you all to look at and discuss possibly coming early and having a study session on this topic, say 1:30 before 3 o'clock, or because it is a 3 o'clock meeting, although I will tell you I've seen the draft agenda and there's quite a bit on it. So I think next week's meeting will go past 5 o'clock, or you could have a study session at the end of the meeting, the regular meeting, if that is desirable by the commission.
I certainly would like to see that, and I don't care if it's before or after. And I will add one more thing. Commissioner Wagner's ordinance, it was more of a holistic approach than mine was, and it even addresses the invocation thing as well. So that's something else we'll be able to talk about at that time. But yeah, I'm all for either one, but I'd like to get it done sooner than later. When I say either one, either before or after the meeting next week. But.
Okay. I really don't have any comments. I think it's good that we have these discussions, and I'm looking forward to going forward. And I'm really looking forward to our retreat. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for us to have more expansive conversations about how this commission would like to go forward.
I did have one more comment. I wasn't done.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought you were. I
I
apologize.
apologize.
Go right ahead, please.
I just wanted to add, just so that my constituents know that I'm hearing them as well. I've gotten similar phone calls and complaints that Commissioner Withington did regarding the health board and closing down comments on Facebook. And I know we have no control over the health board or anything, but I certainly think the optics do not look good. And, you know, we're all Clay County, and I'm hoping that they address that pretty soon, because I've got a lot of constituents that have, I don't know about a lot, but several have commented that they're not happy with that, and particularly the timing of it. And so I just want to say I echo Commissioner Withington's comments on that issue. Thanks for bringing that up.
There we go, very well. That ends the commissioner comment section. We have some reports, I believe, that have been submitted. Administrator?
If the commissioner will bear with me before we get to reports, would sort of like to have discussion by the commission if you want to have a meeting next week as a study session item on this topic, and if so, you know, availability to come before the meeting or stay after the meeting so that we could get it scheduled.
So I have a doctor's appointment at 1 o'clock, so after works for me.
Let's just go around and just, if you have a feel for your schedule.
After's fine.
I am flexible for either one so far as I know.
Same. Thanks.
It sounds like there'll be a study session.
If we do it after, we don't have to call it a study session.
Yeah, whatever we call it.
It'll be a discussion item.
Okay, we'll just make it at the very end and be as long as it needs to be.
Very good. You might also, by the way, Administrator, want to just give us a reminder that way in case any of us have, and I'm thinking of me, may have spaced something that is, they've scheduled, but I just didn't know on top of mind, just to confirm that we do have that. And this time I'll be the guy who doesn't know his schedule overly well, just to make sure that we have that, go off without a hitch. So that brings us to then the reports.
Thank you. Included in your packet is the county auditor's monthly report on cash basis for February of 2023.
Very well, and I'm sure all commissioners have received that. With that, that brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.